There we go. What's up, Monday morning people? This is Elevating Your Voice. I'm Chris. He's Marco. And over here we have Dillon Martin. Dillon Martin comes with, he's a neighbor. And I've had conversations in the past about the wholesale buying process of things. So that's why he's here today. He's not in a brokerage, but he's going to provide really, really good insight on the whole wholesale market and how they buy, why, what they will or won't buy, that type of thing, what they do, what they buy the houses, and they don't wholesale them. It's going to be a really cool conversation. Feel free to throw any questions in the chat box as we go along. Dillon, give us a little bit of your, elevator speech, who you are, why you're here, and all that kind of fun stuff.
You got it. So my name is Dillon Martin. I am a neighbor of Chris's and glad to be on today. I am the team leader of the Doug Hopkins team. And what we do is we buy homes for cash. I'm sure that you guys have seen our advertising. We spend hundreds of thousands a month on ads, and it basically says, I'm Doug Hopkins and I want to buy your home. And pretty unique option that we've started long before everybody else. Obviously, there's a bunch of copycats that have come out, but Doug's been doing this for a long, long time. And I've been working with him for a long time. I started working with Doug when I was 18 years old back in 2010. Started with him when I was 18. It was a good time. So that company then was called Posted Properties. We helped people buy foreclosures. So it was a foreclosure entity.
What was your role when you started working for him? Not to interrupt you. What was
Oh,
your
you're
role
good.
back then?
I was a gopher.
Okay.
I actually I'll have to have you over at the office. I'll show you. I have a shadow box with my shirt, my iPhone 2 or whatever. But yeah, I started out, I was a driver and a bidder. So
Okay.
every day there'd be a list of trustee sale properties that would come, and I'd get that email at like PM at night, and I put it all into MapQuest, whoever remembers MapQuest, and then I would drive to those properties and be there by sunrise, and so start taking pictures. So let's say that you, Chris, were buying a property.
Mhm.
You would pay Posted Properties $3,000 to do a title search for you, to do a driving report so you could actually see the property. Obviously, we take pictures of the outside. If I could take pictures through windows or go in through a doggy door or something like that, I'd take some pictures inside. And then we'd go actually down to the courthouse steps and we would bid on the property and buy the property for you with you live on the phone. So you could be a part of that process.
So now touch on that a bit, because we have people here that are going to watch this that probably haven't really understood the concept of a trustee sale at the courthouse steps. So you do your due diligence. You do the driveway, you got the pictures, you got the client on the phone, you're on the courthouse steps. What do you have to do to what do you have to do to be a bidder? Do you have to have the money out front? Do you have to have a certain like cashier shake hand, a series but bidder here? What's the protocol of that?
Yeah. So in Arizona, you have to do a $10,000 cashier's check.
Okay.
And then you have to have the remaining balance within 24 hours. So you have to pay the home cash within 24 hours, but $10,000 immediately. So as soon as you won that bid, you would come up, you would sign, you would give them the check, and it was done. And then if you didn't give them that full cash within 24 hours, they'd keep the $10,000. Right.
Okay.
And at the time, people don't realize how crazy this was. We were buying homes in Santan Valley for $50,000. So we were already putting 20% down on some of these homes. It was $10,000 was significant. So I'm 18 years old. I have a binder, a black like zip binder with $200,000 in checks walking past the homeless people as I'm headed downtown. And I'm just really, really, really trying to not lose the company's money.
Oh my goodness.
So we have a question for one of our agents regarding the service you're talking about. Is that something that you still guys offer?
No. We did. So Doug started in real estate. He was first licensed in 94. He was just a normal agent for 5 years. And in 1999, he got into the trustee sale business, right? So helping people buy trustee sale homes. And he was doing it for himself. And then he opened it up to others. He ran that company, Posted Properties, started, I think, in 2000, 2001. And he sold that company when foreclosures dried up. Right around 2013. And in 2014, that's when we switched to this direct to seller model.
Okay.
So, because we've always been doing, more off market properties for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Hence with foreclosures.
Right.
And then we transitioned into a direct to seller model, if that makes sense.
So can you talk a little bit about your current model? A little bit
Yeah.
about how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, a massive, massive, massive amount of advertising. Anywhere that advertising can be done, we're there. TV, radio, billboards, obviously a bunch of PPC, meta, mailers. If you can get in front of people, we are doing it. We have a massive, massive budget to do that. Again, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, and that has people that reach out to us. And so they reach out, and we have a whole intake team, a call center, if you will. All people local. They're here at the office every day. They answer the phone and they're asking some basic questions. They're figuring out the condition of the property, the timeline of the seller, and how much the seller's looking to make. Then we set an appointment. We go face to face, and we're confirming those things right visually. So we're seeing the condition, we're seeing their timeline, we're seeing that price, and based on those options, right, based on what they need, we're either giving them what they're asking for, which is a cash offer. And I'll go into some of the terms of our cash offer and why it's unique, or we're pivoting to help them get their home on the market with a listing, right? So the Doug Hopkins team, we do roughly a little over 100 contracts a month, and it's basically a 50-50 of, hey, are people getting a cash offer, right around 60 or so a month, or are we helping them put their home on the market because the cash offer just couldn't quite get there?
So
Does that make
here's the
sense?
question. Here's a question. I don't know if you can answer this or not. You have 50 houses that you're essentially going to buy every month, right?
Yep.
Because if you have 150 go on the market, 50 you buy from the owner.
Yep.
That doesn't look good to me as somebody who has that kind of money. I mean, it could be wrong, but where are you getting the funds to buy? Because you're buying 50 houses a month. What does that equate to? A couple $1 million?
Millions.
Yeah,
A couple of things that would be good to know. I mean, Doug owns uh, just under 100 rental properties cash.
that's not surprising.
Yeah, so he has all these rental properties, and with doing so, you can put together portfolio loans,
Okay.
right? When you have all of these assets that do not have any liens, you
Okay.
can go to
Okay.
banks and get unique lines of finance that, again,
Okay.
the normal public just doesn't have access to,
Right.
and we can have
Right.
the kind of assets that they do. Doug is very, very financially sound. I mean,
Okay.
we have a sister company in California called Seller's Advantage that my uncle runs, and Doug's a partner over there as well. And they do just about as many contracts as we do. There's an awful lot of
Yeah.
revenue
Okay.
coming in where buying those properties is
Mm.
not an issue at all.
Okay.
But we're not necessarily taking all of them down. We have some
Right.
great partners, right,
Okay.
that we will wholesale these properties to. We can't buy 50. I mean, the amount of money, crews, material, etc., would be so massive, it would be very, very difficult to scale. And so we probably have 8 buyers or
Okay.
so that are contractors that want to flip properties, and they work directly with us, right? Whereas I'd love to help people understand the difference of cash offers now, because it's really, really important.
It
Doug's
is.
cash offer is guaranteed. So there
Yeah.
is zero cancellation, there's no inspection, and we do very, very aggressive amounts of earnest money.
But that's after you vet it like you talked about. Like you're going to meet the client face to face, the homeowner. You're going to make sure what they're telling you is actually true. That the house is in. Yeah. Okay. And then we have a question that's kind of, I guess, related to where you're going with this. Do you shy away from stuff like manufactured or historic homes?
No, but
Okay.
it's all just about the product.
Right.
And how long is this going to
Right.
take to take? I mean, so I,
Okay.
I have people in Paradise Valley that'll reach out and they'll say, hey, I got a tear down. I got this, I got that. I'm wanting 200 grand, under retail. And they don't understand that, hey, the holding costs alone for that will eat that profit. I mean, so with some of the luxury stuff, I mean, it's much deeper than a 3-2 tile stucco home in Gilbert would be. I can be super aggressive on that.
Right.
Whereas a luxury home, not so much. Or, hey, I got a manufactured home on 3 acres in Florence. That's going to be a tougher property.
Right.
That days on market's going to be a lot longer. The holding cost is more, the risk is higher. Therefore, we're going to have a little more margin to be able to work with. Right.
And I learned that with you with a couple of things we talked about last year, that you don't think about it as a normal everyday realtor and or homeowner, that you have to figure in all the holding costs, because when the market's slow, then your holding costs, I don't know how to explain it. You have to take into account it's going to take you maybe 90 days to sell that house that you're buying.
Totally. And that
Yes.
money has a cost.
Right. That's what I was trying to get at. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So people think that, Doug just has $100 million sitting in the bank. No, that wouldn't be smart, right? In fact, if your money's just sitting in the bank, you're losing purchasing power every single year with inflation, right?
Mhm.
And so that's where you have your money in assets and then you take a loan against those assets, right, to deploy it. But that loan is still prime plus a point or two. And so you're still paying, 7, 8% on that money. Is that a great rate? Is that awesome to be able to leverage? Yes, but it still costs us money, especially when there's millions of dollars out at a time.
Right.
So there's for sure holding costs, there's utilities, there's landscaping, there's insurance, that most people just do not think about, right, when it comes to having the property done and dialed. Security for some properties, because some areas have an issue. So we might have to pay for internet to be on to get security cameras up so that people aren't stealing the appliances.
Right.
So
Here
it
is
happens.
Dillon-
You're moving starting from house to house.
Dillon, do you guys, so the homes that you guys go after, they have to be off market. So if something's already been on the market, is that a deal breaker for you guys?
No. We'll buy them. I just bought a home on Friday that was listed on the market. It was in Dreamland Villas here in Mesa, a mile away from our office. It was on the market for $389,000. The seller was absolutely certain the home would sell. It had been on the market for 6 months. They started at 400, dropped it $10,000. I came to the property and I showed all the comparables and I showed and said, hey, there's a bunch that have sold at 300 and their open door just flipped one for 330 right here. The reason your home isn't selling is because you guys are actually priced $90,000 too high. We ended up buying that house for 235, that we signed the contract for, right?
Mhm.
So I mean, when you look at, man, it's on the market for 190 and you're buying it for 235. Yeah, 390 to 295. That's a huge spread. Well, lots of these homes on the market that aren't selling is because the seller listed them way, way, way too high.
Thank you.
And so there's a massive amount of education and adjustment. So the agent's looking at me like, thank you for finding the side and telling this lady and showing, because I'm literally pulling up the comps on my
Yeah.
iPad and showing them like, hey,
Which goes back to the question of what's the agent doing? Why is the agent afraid to rip it off like a band-aid saying, hey, your house is not worth what you want it to be at?
right.
It's the first thing I tell people when I go list their house. Like, I'm going to tell you how to say, if you don't like what I have to say, you can ask me to leave, but I'm not going to just tell you a price so I can stick a sign in the yard and pray baby Jesus your house sells. Does me no good. Does you know good? Like back in the day, which I'm sure you both can relate to this, there's that thing. Okay, if we start at 390, how many mortgage payments are you going to continue making when it sits? So you got to start adding that cost as a seller. You're losing out month after month after month because you're not letting the price correct. Because I made that mistake. Everybody's made that mistake, right? When you first get the business, oh, I'm going to get this listing. Then you overdo it, but you learn as you go. So that was a great point. Great.
Correct. Thank you. And we work with agents all the time. Probably 5 to 8 of our contracts that we're buying a month are coming from agents. Say right around 10% every year come from directly from our agent partners. So our agent partner will walk into a house, with a listing appointment, and it's a distressed property. There are foundation issues. There's major electrical issues. There's been a fire, a flood. That's been a rental property. It's been trashed. There's pets in there that have just trashed everything. There's been domestic dispute where there's holes in all the walls and there's issues going on. I mean, these properties are all over the place and they come about. And instead of trying to put it on the market and not being able to do, an FHA or VA loan and just trying to go conventional and having it be a crazy, messy process, you can do your clients a favor and say, hey, you're going to make $20,000, $30,000 less, but you can be done in 7 days, right? And stay in the property for a little bit after for free, right? So that's where the terms really come into effect.
And Dillon, how do you, as a company, how do you guys manage, because when you guys give an offer, cash offer, right? You're saying, hey, we're gonna close on it. We're not gonna do an inspection. We're gonna buy it as is. Right? What happens if you guys get in there after you've purchased it and then you just discover it's a mess behind the walls and all that? How do you guys as a company eat that cost, and what's the philosophy behind that? Because it's kind of risky, right? It's kind of risky.
Definitely risky. So a couple of things. One is volume solves a lot of problems, right? So for example, if we buy 100 houses and 2 of them end up costing us money, right? That's the cost of doing business. And instead of trying to go after that seller, and say you lied to us or whatever, it's not worth our name or reputation, right? To do that. We would way rather just cure that loss with a volume and say, you know what, bummer. The lesson that we should have learned here is that we should have, looked underneath the sink to see if there was mold. Hey, ref, you missed that whole part of the wall right here looked like it was melting and squishy. How did you not notice that? Instead, we'd look at it as a positive and a training point. So volume is the short answer that cures a lot of that. And the other is just experience, because we're going on so many appointments. We're going on, 400 appointments a month where we're coming in and getting to talk to people and present options. The amount of at bats that we're getting, the amount of homes that we walk into, it's not like a traditional agent that might have 1 or 2 listing appointments a month. My guys, I'm training them. We're going on 25 to 30 appointments a month. Almost every single day, they're out meeting with the seller, going over the value proposition. And
Now, is that norm for you as far as numbers, or does that fluctuate the way the market changes? So like right now, the market is a little bit slower market time, things like that. So are your appointments higher in this type of market as opposed to when they were when COVID hit and everything went nuts?
The short answer to that is that we are very steady. So since COVID, we've grown steadily by roughly the last 2 years, we've grown by 37%.
Nice.
So during COVID, we did right around 450 contracts in 2020, 21. And last year we closed over 900 contracts. And again, key to understand that there is a mix of traditional in that.
Like
Right.
how many active listings do you guys have right now off the top of your head, if you know?
We have over 100
You're
properties
cheating.
on
You're
the
cheating.
market.
You're cheating. You're looking at my computer.
Here, let me pull it up just so that I can give you accurate data here. So we have 38 pending listings right now and 66 active.
So here's a question that's on everybody's mind that most people won't ask. So I call you up, John, I got this chick. She wants to sell her house. I'm going to connect you to.
Yep.
How do I get paid?
Yeah. So how you get paid is that, so first and foremost, we are not taking any of our agent partners' clients, period. Right. So when we have a lead come from an agent partner, that is your lead, right? There is no way on God's green earth I'm going to take this lead and steal your listing and put it on the market. Again, yeah, a couple $1,000s is not worth a relationship to us, period, the end. I would wait burning you for a couple $1,000 and you telling your whole brokerage that Doug Hopkins snaked a listing from me is not worth it, period, the end. So that is your client. And as for what that cash offer is going to be, it's super simple. We have our numbers that we're looking at with our underwriting team, right? We're calculating holding costs. We're calculating paying 2 sets of closing costs, 3 sets of closing costs. Ours when we buy it, theirs when we buy it, and then ours when we sell it again, right? We're counting in commissions. We're counting in the repair costs, and we're counting in how much profit we need to make to get a return on our money. Right. And again, every property is different because it has different hold time and different amounts of repairs. Right.
So there's no straight answer as far as what you need to make as an investor on the back end because of all the variables you just discussed.
Yeah, everybody the first thing that I'm talking to in any sort of elevator pitch, which isn't because it's a little more open forum, we have more time. He goes, hey, what percentage do you buy your homes at? Right. And they want to hear, hey, I buy my homes at 81 cents on the dollar. So they take their $100,000 house and go, Dillon's going to offer me $81,000 for the house. And the short answer is that we do not have a range like that. I mean, because again, for some tile stucco 3.2s that without a pool and without solar, man, I can get really skinny there. And we have some long-term rental people that I can have a very aggressive offer. Similar, where there's less people, less buyers that want some of these manufactured or on the opposite end, crazy luxury, right? So my numbers are down on those. So there's not a perfect answer. The bread and butter properties that we're buying the vast majority of our homes, our median purchase price is probably between $350 and $450 for where we're buying most of these properties.
So the higher end ones, and you and I have talked about this before, so I know the answer, but I want it to be shared with. The higher end ones has such more holding cost because it's limiting the type of buyers that are out there for the market, and it's not really an appealing rental, right? So that's why you're going to shy away from those higher priced homes, just for the sheer fact, the holding costs and the amount of cost it would take to get that market ready if you were to go put it back on the market.
Exactly. The cost of finishes for a $1.5 million plus home
Yeah.
is so much more. I can't just put in scrap granite
Right.
like I can
Right.
for a condo. Like
Right.
for condos, I mean, I can take some scrap granite and put it together and it looks great and nobody's going to complain. Whereas if I have a $2 million home in the East Valley or PV or, even parts of Peoria, I mean, they're going to want to know where it's sourced. They're going to want to see the different specs. They're going to want the kitchen to match every vanity in the bathroom and,
Mhm.
the thing. So it's a completely different process for a tract home. I'm not worrying about deco walls. I'm not worrying about accent walls. Whereas
No.
these
Yeah.
other price ranges, I'm paying a carpenter $1,000 per room to be able to do unique stuff to make it stand out and feel like it's the price point that it is. Right. Same thing with
Yeah.
cabinets. I mean, we can go buy Vietnamese cabinets and stick them into some of these lower end price homes and nobody cares. Whereas if you have this $2 million property, you're spending $1,000 on
Right.
custom cabinets sometimes.
So that takes you down another path of question. So because you do this volume from you do 150 of them are going to be flipped or turned out to wholesalers. The one is you hold and flip because of the volume. Obviously, you're having wherever your sources are coming from as far as materials, you're getting a much better cost
Mhm.
from that aspect, right? Like kind of like OfferPad has the same. Every house they buy ends up being the same paint, the same countertops, the same cabinets. There's no variance at all.
Yeah, especially for the cheaper homes,
Yeah.
until white cabinets stop being the top comp in the neighborhood, we're going to keep putting it in.
Yeah.
It's, right. But again, you go into some of the higher price brackets and they don't want the white. They want more of a,
Yeah.
birch,
Right.
lighter wood tone, with the multi, you might do blue and they do a whole bunch of stuff. Right.
Yeah.
But for the price point, the easy in and out things there. Yeah, you're exactly right. There's being a lot of things purchased at scale. Right.
Yeah.
Dylan, I have a question. Um, I know that wholesale has come up, a little bit in our conversation. Do you guys try to wholesale every deal, or what's the process of knowing when to wholesale or not as far as your company goes? Like,
You got to know the
where
holding.
where are you guys at?
Yeah. And so the short answer to that is that lots of the properties that need a lot of work, we will partner with another contractor on, right? Selfishly, there's more risk to that. The longer you're holding a property, the more risk that you have.
Yeah.
The market could shift at any time. We could go to war over Greenland tomorrow, and there could be crazy cost of materials. Trump's putting tariffs on a whole bunch of countries right now. Cost of materials could just skyrocket. The market could absolutely change on a dime. Right. So
Yeah.
the reason that I mention that is that time is the enemy. So lots of the homes that we'll take down personally are ones that need less work. Right? They'll be, hey, we need to do a bathroom, carpet paint, landscaping. This is a tighter deal, but we can get in and out quickly.
Right, right,
And on the same front, that's a skinny deal with less margin. So it's harder to sell. Whereas lots of the buyers say, I want the stuff that looks trashed because I have more room to make up,
right,
right, for potential surprises that might be
right,
found.
right,
So I personally, I don't do solar. I prefer, no pools. I prefer, you know, tract homes. I prefer, 1980 or newer. It used to be we were buying a bunch of rental properties. I just purchased one in Casa Grande that I bought from Doug that I'm just going to end up keeping as a rental property. So that it all is every property is different. You got to look at the exit strategies and go: is this an Airbnb? Is this just a flip? Is this a long term hold? Can we make this a pad split? Right? What
Yeah.
are the possible options here?
Yeah, and I think
With-
that's so cool that you guys are so diverse. I mean, you guys look at every property and really imagine what it's, potentially what is the best outcome for that, right? Whether it's be a
Yep.
wholesale, whether it's a hold, whether it's a flip, whether
Yep.
we put it back on the market after some renovations, right? Which I think, I mean, I don't know too much about iBuyers, but it seems to me like, like these offer pads, they have just one MO, right?
Mm.
Buy it, flip it, and then put it back on the market. It seems like you guys are just very, you're very aware of what's the best thing for you guys to make money or for the property to really make sense. Yeah.
And I would argue we make that all about the seller. So if the seller wants, we've had super unique terms that we'll write in. We'll have sellers that'll stay in the property for a year after. We'll have sellers that, they want a really long escrow. We'll have sellers that, want to sell the property, but they want their brother to be there and rent it back until they pass away. Like there's terms are what really, really makes this entire process different, because we're listening to the seller's needs. We're saying, hey, what's really the motivation here? What's the condition? What's the timeline? What price point makes sense in being able to provide options? And that's where most of these iBuyers, they cannot adjust and pivot, right? It's like going to Rocket Mortgage. You're going to get a great rate from Rocket Mortgage if you're a W-2 employee with a great DTI and a great credit score. But if you're a 1099 employee and you have some complicated income and some complicated debt, they don't want to work with you, right? So there's some buyers out there that are fantastic. They're great. But when you have somebody that's been in the market like us for 30 years, right? That's day in, day out. We know these neighborhoods, we know the areas, and we know the different exit strategies, and we can really put it together and say, hey, we would love to work with you. Here, based on what you need, here's some options. What would you like? And we put it back onto the seller, and they get to pick the terms that they want.
That's
right?
cool. So what's the catch with not wanting to work with a house with solar? Out of curiosity.
Oh my gosh.
Let's assume the solar's owned, because the solar lease is a cluster, right? But let's
Yeah.
assume they own the solar, and why would you shy away from that?
Yeah. So first and foremost, there's different levels of solar for those people that don't know. There's solar that's owned outright. There's solar that's owned, but they're having payments on it. And then there's leased solar. All of them are vastly different. If there is a property where solar is owned outright and there is no lien, it is a positive. But you spent $40,000 on it, and it is not worth $40,000. It's worth 10, maybe. Like that's all the appraiser is going to give you. You're not going to get extra purchase price when you go to sell that property. And every solar company that's selling you this product is lying to you and telling you that it is adding more money.
Yeah, I had an appraiser tell me that straight up. I had a house with the solar on it, and I flat out told the appraiser I had no idea how to value it because you hear so many different things. So I was there when the appraisal took place, and she got a third of the value. She still had 52,000, and the appraiser gave us a third of that, which I was like, okay, cool. Is that a good range?
That's awesome.
Right. And that's what she said. She said, because it was newer, and it was at the time, it was a newer technology, all that kind of jazz. She says, typically, it's like you said, it's a fourth of the value, but for that, because of the relevance, the newness of it, she was like a third is where to give you. But rule of thumb, like you said, if it's 50 grand, you get about 10%, 10 grand or so out of that. So
it's just like a pool, man. You'll put $90,000 in right now, and you're going to get 30 grand back.
Depending on the yeah. So continue with, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to.
You're
out there.
So with solar, owned is fine, but there's still complications with transferring warranties and everything. And lots of these solar companies don't want to work with investors. So they don't like transferring warranties to LLCs. They want it in individuals' names, which presents a problem, right? And then for solar that has a loan, right? Lots of times they won't let you assume the other person's loan. Sometimes they will. Sometimes they will, but lots of times they're making you just get a whole new loan, and they won't let investors buy some of these. So Good Leap is one that I know for sure won't let investors buy it, period. So I would have to buy it in my personal name, which we've had to do. It's like we've gotten down to escrow at the very end, and the solar company screws up the whole deal. We have to extend escrow for a week, and I have to do all new documents and just buy it in my own personal name, which changes all my tax liability, right?
Wow.
And it's a nightmare to work with. Getting anybody on the phone's a nightmare, everything. Last I'll say is leases, and these leases are escalating in the vast majority of cases that are being sold now. They're really being sold with this tax credit, right? So these people are getting $5,000 to $8,000 back, if their taxes, but that only makes sense if they actually make enough money to get that tax credit back, right? And I would argue that as soon as you have to take the solar off for a roof repair, that credit is gone. It evaporates because you have to pay to remove the panels and pay to put the panels back on to keep your warranty. You can't just have your roofing contractor pull them off and pull them back on.
Right.
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 So the
So
solar company won't come remove the solar panels if roof repairs needed because they just
many won't. Yeah,
wow.
many won't.
Yeah.
And not just that, but the idea of solar is locking in your utility payments. And with leases, they escalate.
Yeah.
And so do some of these loans.
Yeah.
And when I really sit down and do the math on a lot of property, there are exceptions. There's very
Sure.
large properties that it makes a lot of sense with, especially with SRP, and there's some with APS. But on, again, the typical cookie cutter homes that we're dealing with here, with a median purchase price of $450,000, it is basically a wash. You might be saving $100 to open yourself up to a huge lease or a huge loan that at the end of the day isn't worth the savings because of all of the extra headache and maintenance that this causes. And from, again, a company that's doing a lot of velocity, I see solar as just a complete negative. If the property has solar, I know that it's going to make the whole process more intricate.
Yeah.
Dillon, before we get into the next, we have a really good question, but before we get to that question, is it the same? How are you guys on septic?
Fine.
Septic? Okay.
Yeah, totally
Okay.
fine.
Okay. Awesome. So the question is, are you concerned about the potential legislation that is being talked about in Arizona limiting companies to 50 units total in their inventory at a time?
No,
No.
I like it.
Tell us why.
By inventory, does that mean rentals?
I think it means. I think what he's talking about is they're passing. I saw it the other day too, Marco, and Mark is asked a question. They're trying to limit investors. Should they only be able to buy 50 houses because they remember HUDs back in the day when HUDs was really good. It was downtown Phoenix, MCB had it, and the first 11 days were owner occupants only. Or the first 10 days were only owner occupants, and then J11 investors could come in.
Yep.
I think they're trying to wrap their head around something like that because they want to give mom and pop, first time buyers and stuff, the ability to buy a house without being trumped by an investor. So the concept there, but I don't think it's going to be the same approach. But I think that's what Mark's asking, right, Mark? And Mark was, how you reading it too? That's what I saw. So it's that kind of thing. It's like going to limit people like you, the other bozo that wears the hat on the billboards, and then, and then the other guy we talked about. They're going to cap them at 50. They can only hold 50 properties from an investment fix and flip standpoint. Is what I'm understanding. I may not be accurate, but that's what I'm understanding that to be.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that at all, because at the end of the day, there's two approaches when I think of investors. There's retail investors that, like BlackRock and Progress Residential and all these other ones that were buying massive amounts of homes, right? Away from people that actually would live in them and driving the prices up. I'm in complete agreement with these institutional buyers, right? Absolutely. As for off-market distressed properties, there's going to be somebody that needs to go in and invest in this property. And and honestly, with today's economy, the average buyer doesn't have the know-how, the time, nor the money to be able to buy a distressed property and put tens of thousands of dollars and all of their time into it to be able to do that. And they're definitely not a ton of them out there, even if there's a handful. So I'm not worried about the distressed off-market side at all. A handful of things that I would love for that, like I would love everybody to be licensed that's going to do that. That's not currently a law. Everybody in our company has to be licensed, mandatory. We have to follow the code of ethics. We're doing all the proper disclosures and everything, right? Whereas a bunch of these other companies that I'd like to dive into a little bit are not licensed. They do not have to follow these same rules, regulations, guidelines. They don't have to act as a fiduciary, right? And they are, there's huge, big lawsuits that have happened in Arizona where the, attorney general is going after some of these off-market people because they're doing.
And there's risk too. There's some buyers out there that don't hold a real estate license, which means they haven't done a background check. And you're letting these people into your houses and sitting in your living room, and they have no ethics to follow, right? None. It's just, you could be a pedophile, a serial killer, a rapist, whatever. You're allowed to walk in your house under the illusion they're going to buy your house at a wholesale price, and they could have completely ulterior motivation to walk into your house because they don't have the license, because they're not vetted, because they don't have background checks. It's a freaky little thing. So it's a good thing that, I like the fact that you guys are all licensed. And you have to, by the way, we have once a month at our office, Dylan, we have continuing education classes that anybody can attend. You get 36 hours in the calendar year.
There you go, dude.
Right?
Love it.
Oh my gosh.
So real
Freddie
quick,
says, I think you actually found a wholesaler that I can respect. This is from Shay Ramble. This is
Oh,
awesome.
thanks.
I've had such bad experiences with them in the past. I'm really so happy to see this.
Yeah.
We're here to please Shabby. There you go.
So a couple of
Continue,
things. Just so I think wholesalers and realtors are pretty similar. I'll explain why. I think the public in general dislikes realtors, as a whole, because realtors have done a bad job. The realtors takes 90 hours of coursework and a test to be able to get in, and then you can go ahead and take Americans' biggest asset that they ever hold and hold that future in your hands. And in most cases, they're not qualified to do so, and therefore give a bad experience, right? If you look, there's 50,000 real estate agents in Arizona, and I think a third of them this year didn't even do a transaction. And then the other third might have done 2 or less, right? So the vast majority average of realtors, when people think about it, I think we've earned that negative connotation, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that are bad actors that just aren't putting people's best interest at heart.
Well, they fall
And I
with
think
the NAR guideline or the NAR statistic, right? But most realtors do 2 to 4 transactions per year. That's it.
that's it.
That's it. I mean, that's across the country. You're seeing that's the average amount of transactions a realtor does. So people like us, we beat that norm big time, but we're still willing to the stigma for the 2 to 4. They they do such a bad job, then it's everybody's fault.
Correct. Wholesalers are even worse. They don't have to do 90 hours of coursework. They don't
Right.
have to follow a code of ethics. They watch a couple YouTube videos about arbitrage and wanting to wholesale, and they say, oh, so all I have to do is sign a purchase contract, and then I can assign that right to purchase to somebody else, and I can make a profit. And so all I have to do is make some phone calls and do this. So the barrier to entry is very, very low. The cost to do it is low. But the key is they don't know what they're doing. So most experience that realtors have had with wholesalers is absolute waste of time because they're not putting the client first. They're not licensed, and they're not trying to actually run a business and have a name to protect. So there's 3 approaches to a cash offer that I'd like to explain. First is the iBuyer. So the iBuyer cash offer is close to retail, right? But they have a 5 to 10% convenience fee. Then they do an inspection and take the property down all the way, right? And then they make them pay for their own closing costs, and then they finally close, right? And at the end of the day, that offer is similar to where I would just be cash outright, right?
Because you come up front. You come up front. That's what I want everybody to understand. Dillon and his team and Doug Hopkins, the team, they come up front. Here's the offer. There's no wavering. There's no bullshit. There's no I'm gonna nickel dime you death here. It's like if it's a $450,000 house, it comes and says I'm gonna give you $350. That's it. They don't come
Done.
off of that. That's the price you sell it. Will get it.
Correct. The second option is what most wholesalers do. So they'll come in under, right? They'll come in under. It'll still be a little high though, but they'll come in under, and they have an inspection period, right? Critical. A standard is 10 days with the Arizona purchase contract. They'll push it out to 14, sometimes even 30 days. The whole contract will be in the inspection. And as you guys know, you can cancel during the inspection period for basically anything. And that's their out. And so they have an inspection period. Many times it's very long, and they put very little earnest money down, very little liability, right? And so they'll get this property tied up in many cases over the phone. Lots of people are trying to do this business virtually. And then once the home's under contract, then they will go to the house, actually look at it for the first time, and then they're going to take the pictures and blast it to a couple of lists that are prevalent in the valley to try to find a contractor or another flipper to actually purchase this property themselves. And if they can't do that, they go back to the seller and say, hey, Mr. Seller, your home needs work. I need a price reduction of this. And then they blast the house again. And if the home doesn't sell, they'll just do it again to the seller. So they're constantly renegotiating and retrading until they can find a price that a flipper will actually pay for the property. Does that make sense? So the seller all of a sudden doesn't close on time, has multiple inspections. People are coming in and out of the property all the time to have potential flippers come in and walk the property. And they're not the ones actually buying it. They're having hard money issues. They're trying to get things closed on time. So it's saying it's a cash purchase, but there's still loans that are being worked out. And it is a train wreck of a thing to do with. Now, take that to what we do, right? Before we ever go to the property, we've done extensive underwriting, so that we know all of the comps in the area. We've gauged it on like 3 different levels of condition where we know where we need to be at for pricing, so that when I walk in the door and I'm confirming timeline, condition, and price, I can sit down and we're prepared to fully sign a contract then and there and negotiate the terms exactly the way the seller wants, where there is 0 inspection period at all. There's no out, right? And we will do $5, $10, $20,000 of earnest money, whatever the deal takes to get done. If I'm competing with another wholesaler, I just rack up the earnest money every single time because I know they won't do it, right? So if I'm competing with another guy and they're like, oh, well, he said he'll pay $1,000 more, I'm like, okay, is he willing to give you $20,000 of earnest money and no inspection period? And then pretty soon that guy goes away, right? So other things that are cool to note, we will do an advance to sellers via a promissory note and a deed of trust. So if a seller is house poor, basically they've run on hard times and they need $10,000 to be able to move to their next place or move into a rental or move into their friends or family or whatever, I will advance that cash, right? If they need to do a post possession for ideally only a couple of weeks, right? We can do that, right? Not a problem whatsoever. We can close in as little as 3 days. We can close as long as 45 to 60 days, right? So we completely customize it for exactly what the seller is wanting to do. Compare that to, again, more like an open door box of if you fit in this box, we're pretty good for you, but you have to do things with our time, our measure. There's no moving things around, etc. Whereas with us, they say, hey, Dillon, we wanted to close in a month, but can you close in 2 weeks? No problem. You got it. No, we use a 3-page purchase contract that I'd be happy to email you. It is the most plain layman terms ever, right? That goes over that. But no, we don't use an AAR form for our cash offer. Obviously, we do it traditional, right? But with the cash offer, we love the simplicity of this contract. It basically just says, hey, we're paying for all of the closing costs, all of the fees. The only thing that the seller's paying is debt attached to the property. So obviously, if they have a first or second mortgage or tax liens or HOA liens or something like that, they're paying that debt, but we're paying everything else.
So is your guys' contract was written by an attorney, kind of like on the builders?
Yeah, but unlike a builder that's 185 pages that's designed to screw the buyer, ours is 2 pages that basically just, again, super, super simple. It says, hey, we're buying the property and adds this condition. If it's marked if there's septic and stuff or not, we have to do an HOA addendum. We have to do lead-based paint if it's 1978 or older. We have to do on-site wastewater if there's a septic, right? So it's not just that. That's the core part of the contract. We still have to deal with the other addenda, incorporated.
Dillon, I want to go back to the beginning of your career when you were doing a lot of foreclosures, right? Because you dealt with it a lot. You were in that industry. Do you see foreclosures coming back? What are you seeing out there? I mean, what's your pulse on foreclosures?
I see foreclosures not coming back. 40% of Americans don't have a mortgage on their home at all. So you have 60% of Americans that have a mortgage on their house. And I think it's like 75% of those Americans have a mortgage that's 4% or less, right? So we have massive amounts of equity in this country. And with the Dodd-Frank laws that passed with the last crash, we have gotten away from giving away bad loans. I'm sure that you guys remember these no-doc loans that you could literally get a cheaper interest rate if you didn't provide proof of your financials. Dodd-Frank's done away with all of that stuff. Obviously, there's some programs that I've heard too here and there with people getting into houses for nothing. I hate those, right? But I don't see a place where that's going to be a major issue. at least at this current moment. We might have some that pop up, right? We might have some people, let's say that prices fall and interest rates don't fall. And some of these people that bought 2-1 buy down properties, right? They bought the house
Yeah.
expecting to be able to refinance their rate later. I think that's might be more what you're thinking of, Marco. Yeah, maybe some of those people absolutely have some struggle. Absolutely. But I don't think that even that inventory coming on will be enough to cause a fall like we had in the past.
And a lot of those
Exactly.
2-1 arms and stuff, that's all tied to the builders because the builders were trying to dump their inventory. So we see it all the time, 3%, 3-1 arm, whatever. And it's always tied to the builders. I have a short sale that was a year old when they had to sell it. It was a regular sell then, and now on a short sell term 2 years later. And it's all because the builder in the neighborhood just went in and jacked everybody, dropped their prices, offered all these crazy arms, and it just makes it not affordable to actually go buy a resale home when you have the brand new home sitting there for 50,000 less than their base price wasn't. By the way, we're going to give this 3-1 arm, or you're going to be silent. So I think more of anything we're going to see, based on what you're saying, is going to be on the newer homes because of that arm fluctuation, the inability to refi, like you talked about.
Yeah. And to answer your question too, Marco, I mean, we have a really good pulse on the market with this because of what we did past with foreclosures. And not just that, but we get hundreds of leads a month. And I track equity in these properties. If a property doesn't have enough equity to even do a traditional sale, we have a short sale specialist that we partner with that we send these leads directly to. And so I can see how many short sale leads I'm sending to this contract or, this other agent, and we're sending maybe 5 a month. It's not even 1% of all of the leads that we receive. Now, let's say that starts to increase, right? Let's say that starts to go to 10%. I would be concerned. I would be concerned, but I'm not seeing signs of any of that at this current moment.
It's good to it's good to talk to somebody like you who sees, you guys do so many transactions, right? And I think, really people that do a lot of transactions, especially at your level, you're kind of able to see what the market is, get a pulse of a very encompassing feel for what the market's doing, right? And so it's really nice to hear what you're seeing out there because I have my deals here and there, but I'm not seeing the amount of transaction that you're seeing all over the valley, right? All over the valley.
Yeah, because you go everywhere, right? You guys don't limit yourself just to Phoenix Metro. Like you referenced earlier, Casa Grande. You're valley wide as long as it fits your criteria, correct?
If you go to homes.com and just type in Doug Hopkins, you'll see a map of the transactions that we've done in the last year or 2 years. If you just look at the map there, you scroll down once or twice, you're going to see that we go everywhere. We're going from New River to Picacho Peak, Florence to Stanfield to Maricopa, past Buckeye to Tonopah. We're going all over.
Dillon, we only have a few minutes. So before you get going, just for everybody that's on here, when should we give you a call? I have a listing, it's about to go on market or it's already on market. We're frustrated. What would be a slam dunk for you guys for us to work together?
So first and foremost, I want to work with agents. We love our agent partners and we will pay you that full commission, right? And so we'll say, hey, we can pay this for the property. And if the seller is going to pay you the commission themselves, they'll obviously just pay that. So it's our fee. Or it's our purchase price and you pay it, or we can even pay it, right? If the seller doesn't want to pay any commissions because our offer says no commissions, we'll just lower our purchase price by the amount of your commission. Make sense? So we will get you paid first and foremost. But the ideal property that we're looking at is more of a distressed property. The time when a cash offer makes the most sense to a seller is when there's a distressed situation going on where the time is the main concern or the property's condition again is a concern and therefore they don't have the money or time or no experience to be able to renovate that property to get the maximum amount. Ideally, the seller needs to be at a point where they understand that retail is not in the cards for them or they're willing to accept less than retail, right? Because in many cases, we're buying these properties, if you have a $450,000 home, I'm buying it between $300,000 and $350,000, depending on the condition and everything like that. So the seller has to be willing to take a substantial haircut, right? For that property, call it 85 to 70%. Again, all depending on condition and everything. But that's not for everybody. there's going to be many, many cases, right, where I'll just tell you honestly, I've told Chris multiple times, hey, dude, I'm not going to be able to get there. You need to just tell them that the listing is the only way to go in order to hit their timeline, price, and condition goals. If they're willing to move on some of those things, right,
Right.
then I can help them out. But ideally, it's somebody that is distressed with their condition or the situation that I can come in and provide an awesome value, right?
Awesome.
We
Awesome.
have tons of people that reach out, right? We only end up doing a deal with 13, 14% of people that reach out, right? There's another 85-ish percent people that we present the options to, and they elect to go with a different thing. That's a prerogative. That's totally fine.
Right. So you're doing. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Whatever agents, you mentioned before, you don't like houses with pools. So if you do come across a house with a pool that's in really bad condition, will you just demo it and bury it?
No, I love it. I was just saying for flipping it myself.
Oh,
We have
okay,
guys,
okay.
we have guys that do it. I prefer to be more in and out, right, with stuff that I'm doing myself
Yeah,
to take down. But absolutely, we buy homes with pools. We buy homes with solar as well. And
Okay,
I want to
gotcha.
make sure that's clear. We
Yeah.
absolutely buy homes with solar. We buy homes with septic. We'll put a number on every single house as long as the numbers work, and we'll explain the numbers. Right? We'll say, man, this says solar with a crazy escalating lease.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
going to be difficult to sell. We think we're going to have to give concessions to get the deal done on the back end. Therefore, our purchase price is going to be lower than you might want.
What about condos and townhouses?
Totally fine.
Okay.
Again, condos and townhouses are getting hammered right now. I'm sure that you guys have seen some of the ones in Phoenix that are just insolvent with their HOAs, not able to even do sales in there unless they're cash transactions. So we're taking all that into consideration. Hey, is this HOA in good standing? Are we actually going to be able to do a transaction here? Did they do something crazy with the insurance? Like we ran into this last year. We bought a house, went to sell it, and the buyers backed out because it was a $50,000 deductible.
Oh,
And
God.
the HOA all voted on that to keep their premiums down. And so then they couldn't qualify for a basic loan, right? All these retirees were protecting their premium. They didn't want their thing to go up, but new people coming in didn't have that money to be able to qualify for that. So all of a sudden they couldn't get a loan. So there's some unique things with condos, but we absolutely buy them all the time.
awesome.
Okay, you want to drop your contact information? I'll share it on our page too, but you can drop it here as well.
Yeah.
We'll wrap
Yeah, I'll
this
text
thing up.
my, do you want me to put it in the chat or just text
You
it?
can give me all your stuff, but if you want, you can put it in the chat, and then that way everybody can see. And then I'll put it on our broker shop page when we get done, so you guys have all that information. And I have no bullshit. I've reached out to them. He and I haven't put a deal together yet, but I have reached out to him, I think 3 times with different situations. It's a no bullshit thing. So if you truly have somebody that is in the umbrella of what you've been talking about, it'd be a good option just to talk to him. You're still going to get paid, and it may work out for your seller, and it's going to avoid all kinds of stress and chaos. Don't go to the other billboard guy with the hat on. He doesn't close near as anything what Doug's team closes. Dillon and I have talked about that off camera. I think there's a couple other ones that been popping up that are just like, okay. It's kind of like when I first started advertising on TV. It was me and Russell Shaw. That was it. And then all of a sudden, all these other agents start advertising on TV. So the same concept. You start seeing Doug everywhere, and then all of a sudden you see this guy and then this couple, and it's all bullshit, man. You want somebody that's going to be legit up front and just tell you like it is from the start. Call Dillon. I don't get anything out of it aside from he's my neighbor, but just I met him when I was tearing
not gonna hold your house.
He pulls up in his car, says, "I am Dillon Martin." I'm like, "Oh, fucking shit, I'm sitting there sweating, digging shit out of my yard." Who stops? That's how we met, and then we saw him. So that's the Dillon Martin story. Anything else you want to add, Dillon?
No, I really appreciate the time to talk to you
Yeah.
guys. Again, if you guys need anything, please
Yeah, absolutely.
give me a holler. I'd be happy to help with any questions, concerns. Yeah, I'm here for anything you need.
Awesome.
We appreciate your time,
Thanks.
man.
Thanks so much, Dillon.
Time's valuable, so we thank you for taking your time and hanging out with us today.
Of course, guys. You have a great day. We'll see you.
Have a good one.
Peace.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. If you have, I'll put Dillon's information up, and then I'll have this up on YouTube as well, and we drop the whole video on the broker set page tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. See you.
See you later.